One of the things that attracts us to whales is the fact that they are mammals like us. They share many of our characteristics. They breathe air, they give birth to live young, they nurse their young. They have these things we can relate to as land mammals that we are.
Oh my God.
But humpback whales have a special place. They're probably one of the most active species. They're most likely to breach or engage in behavior like slapping their pectoral fins or tails. They're also just really beautiful. They have these long pectoral fins, longer in relation to their body than any other whale species. They make them very maneuverable, and they use them to, touch other whales and reach out. Humpback whales are one of the larger whale species that were exploited and hunted in what's called the modern era of commercial whaling. The modern era of commercial whaling started in the early 1900s when steam-powered catcher boats and explosive harpoons allowed humans to hunt these larger species. There was actually a commercial whaling that occurred inside the Salish Sea. They took hundreds of humpback whales in winter months, suggesting some animals may have been overwintering here as well. Slowly, the formation of the International Whaling Commission ended up putting protections, and that occurred through the 50s and 60s. There were additional protections that came in from the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act, and that's when they finally started to recover. When we first started studying humpback whales off the US West Coast, there were only about 500. And that was in the late 1970s. And now we're estimating abundance on the West Coast at over 5,000. We've also seen their return to some areas where they hadn't been seen for 50 years or more. One of those areas is the Salish Sea. And in that area, humpback whales were largely eliminated in the early 1900s. In the period I've studied humpback whales, we would see hardly any humpback whales inside of Puget Sound proper. In our most recent assessment, we could identify over 700 different humpback whales that had been sighted within the Salish Sea in the last 10 years. That's been a very dramatic increase. But humpback whales, along with many of the other baleen whale species, go through an annual migration. They feed in the spring, summer, and fall in more productive, higher latitude waters in the northern hemisphere. And then in winter months, the majority of the animals migrate to lower latitudes, closer to the equator, which is where they give birth and mate. And there is the advantage in these warmer water areas of avoiding killer whales and warmer waters for their calves. One of the amazing things about humpback whales in the North Pacific is there's been increasing collaboration among researchers. And so that's created a nice network. We've actually documented whales from Washington going to Central America, Mexico, Hawaii, and the Western North Pacific. And so now we have an ability to track them along that whole migration. We really benefit from our collaborations with researchers in Mexico, like Jorge Urban, who works out of southern Baja California.
There are more whales, they look healthy, and the calf production is high. For humpbacks, it's a good time. They are almost in the numbers that maybe they were before the whaling time.
Inside the Salish Sea, that dramatic increase in humpback whales that we've seen in this area is largely good news. But with that, it's brought them into areas of increased vessel traffic, more interaction with human activities.
The humpbacks are coming back to this area. They're right here in Elliott Bay, creating some things that we have to start to think about to make sure that they're safe, getting their needs met, but at the same time, we're getting our needs, like this ferry, met as well. Soundwatch was developed by the Whale Museum back in the 90s. No one was really educating folks about how to motor around these animals. We had reports over multiple days of a young humpback being here in Elliott Bay. We made the decision to go out. We were working with Cascadia Research to get some pictures to assess its health. He was out in the middle of the ferry lanes doing his little humpbacky things, which included a lot of resting. So when he's resting, he's right below the surface of the water, and even though he's big, you can't see him. He was breaching a lot. I got several pictures of him breaching down the entire Seattle waterfront. It became pretty apparent that being in the ferry lanes, that some contact and outreach needed to happen with the boats in the area. So talked to Port Control in Seattle, let them know we were out there, letting these big vessels know where the animal was at, and just making sure he had enough space to do his thing. That day, we all came together. The big commercial boats, the little private boats, the transiting boats, Harbor Patrol, all of it came together to just make space for this animal. And I walked off the boat that day just like, wow, this is what it could be. We were a part of the solution. Maybe we'll have more humpbacks here. If we make space for them, I think they will come.
Humpback whales now are spared from the threat of commercial whaling, but they still face a number of risks and hazards. And among them include vessel strikes, the amount of vessel traffic we have bringing goods. Ships have gotten larger, faster, and more numerous. Another major cause of mortality and injury is entanglement in fishing gear. A lot of their use of the US West Coast is as their feeding destination, spending months and months feeding, and that requires healthy ocean, prey abundance. It isn't just that they're migrating by, but they're using these waters on a kind of repeat basis. And that's an important reason to protect those resources that they rely on. Humpback whales have shown this remarkable recovery. They were decimated by human whaling. It's really exciting to see them come back, not just in numbers, but also return to these waters that they were formerly gone from. It's something that gives me hope. I hope it gives other people hope that we can make positive change in the environment and see these kind of success stories.
Watch City Stream Tuesday nights at 7 on the Seattle Channel, or find us anytime online at seattle.gov.